Howdy folks, thanks for checking in once again at the Luminary Shop. I'm Rick, and those of you who have been following along on these videos know that I'm in the middle of doing a series of videos on creating a batch of lamps that are specifically designed for hitch wagons. If you haven't been following along on this, just check out these videos and you'll get caught up. In the first part of this video, I'll be finishing up all the small parts and pieces that are required to make these lamps. Now I know many of you like to see all the details of how I go about making all these parts, and I'll try to include as much of that as I possibly can and still not get too mundane with the repetition of it all. So in the second part of this video, you'll start to see how these lamps are going to all come together and what they're going to look like when they're done. So lots to do, let's get started. Many of these smaller spun parts fit onto the round body of the lamp, and so I have to trim them off so that they'll conform to that curved surface. This particular piece is the foundation of the base of the lamp. The piece that I'm working on here is the foundation for the head of the lamp. The lamps can be fitted with either an oil burner or a 12-volt socket. This part that I'm working on here serves as the receiving ring for either of those two parts. These holes allow air to enter the lamp in case we're using an oil burner. The receiving rings also need to be trimmed to conform to the inside of the lamp. I reshape heavy-duty cabinet hinges to act as door hinges for these lamps. These are the drawings I use to make the body liners and cases. First, I'll shear out the blanks. And then I use a template to locate all the holes. This piece is the case. Similarly, I locate the holes for the liners. A center punch makes a small dimple in each hole location. In a like manner, I locate the holes in the case. I'll use the Rotex punch to punch all these holes. Each punch has a small pin at the bottom that locates in those dimples that I made. This is a spring-loaded marking punch that I use to put my logo on lamps that I design and build. I put a small maker's mark on the interior of each lamp. So after the break, I'll get the case and liner barrels rolled and soldered and the flanges put on. And then I'll use a machine that you haven't seen yet in these videos called a rotary machine to form an OG bend and a flange on the end of these barrels in order to fit them together just right. So I'll be right back. Here I'm rolling the inner liners. And now I roll the outer cases. I made the sizing jigs for each of these barrels out of aluminum so that any wayward solder doesn't stick. The liners are made with a butt joint and an overlapping gusset to make a nice smooth interior. The barrels and the flanges for the liners are about 1/4 of an inch less in diameter than the corresponding parts for the cases. That way the liners fit into the cases and make a double-walled lamp. The cases are put together much like the liners, with the exception that for the cases I use an overlap joint, which helps maintain a nice round configuration for the case. This is where that rotary machine I mentioned comes in handy. By changing the dies on the extreme right end, I can make all sorts of different shapes. Here I'm making what's known as an OG bend. It will form a stop for the door to close up against. On the liners, I make a simple flange. Well, I guess that's about it for this video. Seems like everything takes longer once you get to doing it than what you planned in the first place. Anyway, the next videos will show getting these parts all put together, sent to the plater, and we'll get them back. I think we'll be that far by the end of the next video, and we'll start assembling the final nickel-plated lamps and end up with something to show for it. Well, as always, thanks for watching.